Welcome back, everybody. My name is Mike Martin. I'm from Casio, and today we have another artist spotlight excited to bring to you. Hope everyone is safe and well. But first, I must introduce my co-host, 820 miles to my east. How you doing today, Rich?
Could be worse. Holding it down in Hoboken. All things considered, life is good.
Good, man. Great to see you. Glad things are well. So we have a great guest here today, and throughout these artist spotlights we've been doing the last few weeks, we've had a variety of touring artists and different types of musicians. But today we're interviewing someone different. So not only are we interviewing some big stage personalities, but we're getting behind the scenes with someone that's doing a lot of great music composition. He has a great background in MI, and I think he's going to have some great insight for a lot of musicians out there today. Coming to us from the Washington, D.C. area, Mr. Roger Hooper. How you doing, Roger?
Good, doing great. Great seeing you guys. Thanks, everybody,
Roger,
for tuning in.
Yeah, good to have you, man.
All right.
So, Roger, you have a first off, you've got a huge presence on our Facebook pages because you are constantly posting beautiful compositions that you make with your Privia keyboards. You're one of the most prolific composers that I know.
Well, I'm actually just finished one right before I talked to you a couple minutes ago, and I was busy writing all the credits for the picture and all that on SoundCloud. Just didn't have time to finish uploading it. So I'll do it tonight or this afternoon.
I mean, what's amazing, and that's one of the reasons we wanted to have you on here, is because you're so prolific and the amount of music that you're releasing practically daily. Tell us a little bit about your process. What inspires you? How do you get started on a piece of music?
Well, often it's the sound, it's the piano, whether it's the Privia or maybe some kind of expensive piano library or a string library or a synthesizer sound in the Privia. I'll be fooling around with that. And this one I did recently called Afterthought. I don't necessarily recommend this to anybody, especially anybody watching the seminar today. But while we were doing the seminar with Monica, not when she was playing, but I was just kind of sitting there, and I had my volume turned down. I didn't want anybody to hear it. I mean, obviously nobody was going to hear it. And I had this little idea, and so I went ahead and hit the audio record on the keyboard and captured the basic idea for it. And then so when the seminar's all done and everything, I went back to it, and then I went ahead and fleshed it out. And that's why I called it Afterthought, because it was the thought came during that. But and so that's how that one started. And sometimes things are just like that. But other times I have a mood I'm trying to capture, but it's always something different.
Yeah, that's one of the things that, we're always talking about with our Privia keyboards and some of our portables that do audio recording is that, if you've got that moment of inspiration that you don't want to lose, just reach over and hit that record button while you've got it. I mean, even on an instrument like a PXS-1000, you can do the MIDI recording right on it, and just to get that thought down, that musical thought down, and not lose it, and then be able to come back to it is really valuable. So it's great. Yeah. Great to hear that, without even, turning on the computer or the computer's being used for something else, but you took the time just to record that to USB. That's very slick.
Well, the USB drive is somewhat akin to the modern day version of the old $17 Radio Shack cassette. When I was in high school in the 60s taking piano lessons, I had one, and I recorded my practice. When I went to the University of Maryland in 1979, after I had a couple kids, I was 25, I carried one with me, and I would record my practice because I wanted to hear, was I banging, was I phrasing, etc. So now, instead of that, we've got the little thumb drive to put in the keyboard, and not only does it create the piece of music, but it actually creates a very pleasing sound because it has the perfect level. So when you take that wave file and you stick it in Cubase or Live or Pro Tools, whatever it is, the waveform is just big enough that it's got a good level, and you can apply compression and stuff like that to it without overdriving the thing. So it's a cool feature.
Yeah, it's still got a little bit of headroom left, which is good.
Yes.
Roger, you have this gigantic body of work, and you've been in a lot of aspects of the music industry. And this is one of the reasons I was excited to talk to you, because you've done film scoring work, you've done commercial scoring, you've done music for political ads, you've done, did I say video game?
Yeah, it was a video
work?
game trailer on a. It wasn't actually for the company, but it was Electronic Arts.
Yeah,
for a game that they made.
Tiny little company, Electronic
I think
Arts.
in 2005, but they had a thing where they would give people footage to use, and they could create what was called a machinima trailer. I'm not sure if that's a term anymore, but
yeah,
a guy I knew made some of that, and so I scored it, and it was just like a video job. He gave me all this temp music to listen to, and I had to sound like Jerry Goldsmith and John Williams and all this stuff. And then it was put on Electronic Arts site or an auxiliary site of theirs or something, along with other filmmakers that made those things. So it was a great experience. I mean, for sure, to be able to do that.
That's really cool. For a ton of musicians, the goal is to be able to sustain themselves with their craft. So you worked in music retail for a long time. You know, we've all known each other for years. You worked at the great Washington Music, Chuck Levin's Washington Music Center. We love them. You know, you're in this privileged position of having been surrounded by all these amazing musical instruments. At what point in your life did you decide you wanted to dedicate so much energy to composing?
Well, it started when I was a kid at home. My brother is 10 years older than me, and he was pursuing composing. He's not, I think he maybe does it for a hobby now. I'm not sure. But he would record old movies, you know, with the big old TV in the corner. My father hooked up an input, or there was, I guess, an audio input. He would hook up the mono little reel and record those old movies from the 30s and 40s, and then he would try to figure them out on the piano. So as I got a little older, in the mid 60s or late 60s, I did the same thing, and I would record the movies, and I would sit there and I would try to figure out like the theme from King's Row by Eric Wolfgang Korngold or something like that on the piano. And so I kind of wanted to do it then. And I thought about it during the 70s, but as the 80s progressed, I started thinking, yeah, I'm getting older, and I know I want to do music, but I don't really want to tour. I did that for a 6-week stint with somebody. It was a great experience, but I was glad to be home, and I didn't want to go back out again. And so I waited on somebody that I showed a Roland S550 sampler where you had to load the 2 floppy disks in for a set of sounds, and it just took forever. And as I was loading these sounds, he said, "I like the way you do the demos. Have you ever thought about writing for a commercial or something?" And I said, "I would love to do that." And so he went ahead and hired me to do that. And then he hired me to do a second one and a third one. And then every year after that, I would do 1 or 2 things for this guy's name was Brooks, is a really good friend of mine. And so through the course of the 90s, it was like, I love doing retail and I love doing the composing. And as the end of the 90s, early 2000s came around, it was like, if I was ever going to do it, I just needed to do it. And
Jump right in.
I went ahead and jumped in. I had a couple of jobs. One of them, I left retail in 2001. And the first job I had took me, I think, 100 hours or something like that to do. And I worked from like 6 in the morning till like late at night and all that. And then I was working on a second job for a company, and I was backing it up one day, and my daughter called me and she said, "You got to turn on the TV. A plane just hit the World Trade Center." So that was 9/11. And then I found out within a few days that the company that I was doing that for decided to cancel the job, but they went ahead and paid me a large sum of money from it, which was good.
That's good.
And so things slowed down a little bit after that, and it took a while to pick back up, but it did.
Are you finding that there's a little slowdown, or that your business is changing during the pandemic?
Yes and no. I mean, it changes from month to month and year to year because there is a proliferation of music production libraries, of which I write for one right now, and I have some music on another. And more companies are using these production libraries. And so So that's one thing, and that has really nothing to do with the pandemic. But during the pandemic, there's just not a lot going on. Although I worked on a news program for Voice of America in the fall. It was a 5-episode news program, and we finished it. They loved it and everything. And then the high-ups decided, oh, we would like to add more content and do some more interviews and add some more episodes, et cetera, et cetera. And so it was going to kind of morph into something else. And so they're actually working on that now. And theoretically, that will transpire sometime in the near future here. But so that is actually something going on. But I did a promo for it. But the actual work of composing it hasn't come by. So hopefully that'll happen in the next month or two. But other than that, I'm working on notation for an album, a piano. It's actually a piano album that I released a year ago of another composer's work, video game music. And so we want to sell the notation. We have people that are asking us about buying the sheet music and all that. So I've been working on that. It's very time consuming.
Any video game titles that we might recognize?
Well, it's Gabriel Knight, and which was back in the 90s. And I think there was another one released sometime in the 2000s. And Morpheus Rising.
Okay. Uh-oh.
I remember one of those Gabriel Knight songs. I don't remember what it's called.
I can't remember the title either. The album was released last January, awesome. But that definitely sounds like it. So, in the composer Robert Holmes, I've become good friends with, and I would work on an arrangement. I'd send it to him, and then he'd go, "How about this or how about that?" And we'd go back and forth. And I would have good ideas in the beginning, but then I would kind of go onto a left field somewhere by the end, and he's like, that's really beautiful, but we need to rein it in and keep it into the piece. So it was really great experience working on it. And his scores, they were done, a while back, I think it was the early 90s. And it was piano and synthesizers and guitar and everything, but he wanted a piano arrangement. So one of them, I ended up doing a kind of that kind of a thing with strings, and I used a Spitfire string library. I had the heavy bowing and all that, but then I played the piano to it and everything. And so when I did the sheet music for that, I did a 2 piano 4 hands arrangement, but then I did a simpler arrangement that what would I do if I was doing a cocktail hour kind of a thing.
Oh, cool.
Actually, a question just came in about doing cocktail hours. Do you play in any venues around DC usually, not during a pandemic?
Yes, well, I do. I usually get hired to do the wedding ceremony and the cocktail, and so I've done that a lot since I worked for one particular person since the end of 2003, and then a few other areas, and that company's in Baltimore, and then a couple agencies in the DC area, and I've done like a job with a cellist or maybe a cello and a violin, that kind of a thing. But mainly it's in Baltimore, and theoretically I have a cocktail hour in a wedding ceremony in Baltimore at the Baltimore Museum of Industry in the middle of May. But I don't think that's probably going to happen. I'm not sure yet. They haven't said that they're hoping to open by then, but we don't know. But
here's hoping.
But there's like country clubs and some hotels and that kind of a thing, But it's not a public thing. It's always a wedding event kind of a
private gigs. So
and that started out. A friend of mine played in a wedding band for this agency, and he kept contacting me back in 2003, going, "We really want to have somebody come and do the cocktail hour for this," and I just wanted to stay at home and compose for the videos and everything. But then, then that year it was going up and down too, just like it has through the whole process. So I thought, I ought to go ahead. I'll do it once, and we'll see. And so I did it And then I really loved it. And it's like the first thing they wanted me to learn was a movement from a Mozart piano concerto. It was piano and orchestra. And I couldn't find I can't remember where I found the music now. It's been so long, it was 2003. But so I tried to do kind of a simpler version of it where I could learn it in a decent way, not to butcher the song, you know. And so I did that. And the head of the agency loved what I did and everything. And he said, how about doing another one? And then another one. And then I was doing 2 or 3 or 4 a month for a long time, you know. And so I like doing that. And it's exciting to be part of somebody's wedding like that, too, because it's, you know, it's an exciting day for them and everything.
That's
beautiful.
awesome.
Yeah, I like to talk to the father-in-law, too, just to encourage him. You know, because both of my kids are married. I think they actually might be closer to your guys' ages. And, they're both married. There's grandkids and everything, and it's just having the son-in-law and the daughter-in-law has just been the most phenomenal thing for me. Anyway, that's so I like to encourage them. So I always like doing those jobs.
We've seen a lot of pictures of your beautiful grandkids playing your keys, and you're getting them started right, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, they love turning the rhythms on.
Yeah.
And we hated that in retail, didn't we? People would just turn the rhythms on and walk away.
Oh, yeah. Back in, you know, let me tell you, in the 90s, things, it's kind of like the digital version of I walked to 10 miles of school and 10 feet of snow kind of a thing.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
And we couldn't record on thumb drives. Holy the cow. But back then with the arrangers and everything, I thought, no professional's going to use this. And a keyboard with speakers, you have to be a professional, no speakers and all that. So fast forward 25 years, and here I am with, I've got plenty of keyboards, but I've got a keyboard here with speakers and an arranger in it. And I can't tell you how many times I've used those speakers to help somebody learn parts or something like that. When I play for church service, for instance, we'll practice, and then the music will be turned on in the big speakers for when people are coming in, and the vocalist will come over, and I'll run over a part with them or something like that without having a speaker, or to practice if you want somebody to come over and you don't want big, loud sound. It's just great having the speakers built in.
The convenience is hard to beat, and for all those people that knock it when they finally experience having that convenience in there, it's hard to not have that.
Well, you know what else happened? The arranger too. My first gig was when I was 20 in 1974, and I never used an arranger or rhythms. Occasionally, back when I had an Atari ST computer, I did a thing where I sequenced some songs and used that with the floppy disks and everything. But I never used an arranger. And then in December of 2018, I got hired to play for a 3-hour wedding party. They had gotten married 6 months before, but they were just in the islands, and they were having a party for all the people that couldn't go there. And so I got hired to do that. And then I think it was Christmas Eve, I get this email, and they're asking, could you do a dance set for an hour? And my first thought is, I just do like cocktail hours where I'm doing like Gershwin songs and all that. I don't do dance sets. I mean, I did them in the 70s. But so we started going back and forth, and they said, we really want bossa nova. Like my dad loves Antonio Carlos Jobim, and that kind of. And I was like, oh, I can do that stuff. And so I went ahead and sat down with a 560, and I went through and I made some presets of a couple of the bossa novas and a couple of the jazz rhythms, and I just made a note in my in the PDF in my iPad for the songs, which preset to call up, and I played the bass by hand, kind of a thing, and it was cool, and I cranked it up. They loved it, and they're like, "We heard you played Wave. That was so awesome."
That's great.
So your 560 is your primary gigging board when you're doing weddings and things like that, because a lot of people are asking, what's your favorite Casio? What are you using primarily? And it's the PX-560 that's right in front of you. So it's not only a keyboard that you're taking out and doing gigs with, but it's also where you're sitting. That's the centerpiece of your recording studio as well.
Yes, I mean I have I have other things here. I have some Korgs, I have a Novation, et cetera, and an old, which eventually you'll see a video on my YouTube channel of recording. I've got a Pro One synthesizer
Nice.
that I've recorded and done a little thing in the 560 showing that you could record it into the because of its quarter-inch inputs in the
cool.
back. But and all that stuff is great, but I've adapted to the feel of this keyboard, the PX560M, really well. And I guess I started working for Casio as a trainer in 2016.
Yeah.
I think it was March,
Somewhere
and,
around there.
Right.
somewhere around there. And I got the keyboard about that time, and I was like excited. I remember as a retail salesman when I would get new keyboards in the 90s. I remember particularly when the Triton first came in, and I was cutting the box. I was shaking. I was so excited. But the same thing happened. It came upstairs, and I was like, I couldn't wait to open the thing. I had seen you demo it, Rich, with the NAMM show videos, and it's like, that blue is so beautiful. It reminded me of the blue on my Supernova,
Right.
Yeah.
And I just loved it. And so I got it down here. I opened it up. I started playing. The first thing I thought was the texture. I hate it. I just hate the feel. So I'm like, well, I've got to teach people how to sell this, and everything like that. Well, just for context, up until this point, I'd been using another manufacturer's keyboard that was not textured. And that's what I'd been using. And then I also had a Casio PX-330, which was not textured. So here was my first textured keyboard that I can remember. I had some Kurzweils in the 90s. I don't think they were textured.
Nope.
Yeah, it's a pretty
So
recent
there's
thing.
the first thing. So I'm playing it, and it's like, it feels funny. Well, I work down here every day, all day, and then part of the night and everything. Within a few hours, it was like, oh, this feels so good.
Right.
And now it's like when I play some of the other things, it doesn't feel right. To me, I just love the texture, and I love the way the fleshy part of the finger grabs the texture. And
Exactly.
so I've talked to people at stores about that, and they'll say, oh, the customer thought it feels funny. And I'd say, yeah, it's different. When you're not used to it, it's different. But it really, if you go into a piano store and play those expensive grand pianos, they have a fake ivory kind of thing going on there too. And so this really does help. And it helps if your hands get wet.
Right.
Wedding jobs are all outside now. And I opened up a water bottle and it's like 98 degrees out, and the water just splattered all over me. And so then I see the wedding coordinators coming down the aisle, and she's like, the bride's coming out now. And I wanted to dry my hands. Well, I'm not going to dry, on my pants, on the suit. So I just started playing, it was like 1,000 miles or something for the bridal march. And I'm thinking, Rich always talked about how they, wet hands, you grab the textured keys and all that. And it's like, my fingers aren't slipping on here. They're accessing the keys really well. And I just kind of chuckled, so it's, the texture's really great. It's really, really, I highly recommend it to everybody.
Awesome. Actually, what I wanted to do real quick is play one of your pieces, Roger.
Oh, yeah.
I want to give everybody an opportunity because, we know you're always sharing content within the PX560 group on Facebook. And there's some people that, obviously, you've got friends that are following you and listening to your music. But you have so much content up on SoundCloud, and you have so much content now going up onto YouTube as well. Just take a couple of minutes and listen to a very recent piece you just posted. So let's take a listen. And that's an absolutely gorgeous piece, Roger, called Afterthought, which was composed
thank you.
initially on your PX560, and sounds like you brought it into the computer and added some other little elements there as well.
Yeah, more elements from the 560,
Yeah, so
Of course, I use some reverbs and things that aren't in the keyboard, but
Right. Lots of thumbs ups and beautiful comments coming in from YouTube and Facebook.
Thank you,
from
everybody.
everybody. So one thing,
Mike,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to mention a while ago, some comments came in from a guy named Richard Schatz. I'm not sure if you know him, but he says,
I know Richard Schatz.
You know
Hey,
Richard?
Rich.
I wanted to mention, he said, jumping into composing was a great choice for you and the rest of us. And he also said, thank you for all you've done to encourage music and its appreciation.
Oh, thanks, Rich.
Just wanted to make sure you heard that. Those very kind words there.
I met Rich in the 80s. Rolling.
Nice.
All right. Yeah, some lots of people in the chat. So I just want to remind everybody that we can see the chat on Facebook and YouTube and everything live. So if you have any specific questions for Roger, type them right there, and we'll definitely bring them up here.
Oh, hi, Dina.
And Dina from the Alan Perlman Foundation. There we go.
Well, hi, Dina.
Dina Perlman from Alan Perlman.
I used to have an ARP Odyssey Mark III back in the late 70s, and sometime in the early 80s it got stolen.
Oh.
No. Ouch.
Yeah.
That is a shame. I wanted to ask you something about during the break there. We were talking about political ads. It's an interesting sort of niche to get into composing, and I wanted to ask, how does that business come about? Is it word of mouth? How do you get repeat work doing political ads?
All right. Well, in my case, it's been as kind of an overflow thing. There's another composer in the area that I've known since I think maybe the late 80s or around 1990 that I used to sell gear to when I was a keyboard salesman. And we have remained friends since then. And at some point, I can't remember how many years ago, it was sometime in the 2000s, maybe 2005 or 10. I think it was for a Senate race in Georgia. There was I don't remember the job anymore, but he contacted me, and I think he was on vacation or something like that, and this job was coming in, and would I do it? And so I'm like, yes, I would love to. And so I did it, and his client liked it, and his client was not going to start hiring me then. The other composer, friend of mine, his name is Todd. He's a great composer and really, really talented pianist, classical pianist. And, and so every so often I would get something. He had gotten very ill for a little while one year, and so I got a couple then. And I had a few last year, like 3 or 4, I think, maybe, or 3, I can't remember now. And I've done a couple since the beginning of the year where he just wasn't able to do it because of traveling. He was out of the country and things like that. So that's how that has come about. And I've helped him with his Mac system, set up his software and things like that also. And so and we've connected on Facebook, and, we talk a lot. We're good friends and everything. And that's another thing, being in retail, you make so many friends that
Absolutely.
You can make lots of friends. Everything depends on how you treat people, I think, and all that. And I just loved everybody I dealt with, and loved the people I worked for, et cetera. And so he was one of those people, and so that's, I get some of the jobs when he just physically isn't able to do them, or he's, on vacation or something like that. So.
Okay.
And it usually happens.
Overflow.
It always happens at a good time,
Sure.
and all.
But
And and one good thing about those ads is that if they call you at 10 o'clock in the morning, you're done by 12 or maybe 2. But often I'll get a call within 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and it's for a 30-second ad. And the client will ask, "How we doing?"
Wow.
At one time, Cubase crashed. I had done the piece. I'd spent maybe 25 minutes doing it and cobbled this thing together. Cubase crashed. Cubase is wonderful, and any software program will crash. But it crashed, and I could not open the song file back up again.
Ouch.
And so
Yeah,
I trashed
that's
the
tough.
preferences. In the middle of that, the client called up and goes, "Where's the piece?" And I go, "I'll have it in a few minutes," and so I was able to get it back, but I had to trash the preferences, and it changed like the audio interface settings and all this stuff that I had to go refigure.
Yep.
But so it can be a little tense.
I mean, the timeline for things like that. I mean, I guess keeps coming back to the same thing we keep talking about is how much work you continue to put out there every week, and plus there's things you're doing that's paid work that we may not even be seeing.
Yeah.
It's just what advice can you give to somebody that's getting started in composing music or wants to get involved in doing work for film or TV like you've had the opportunity to do?
Well, listen to a lot of different things, whether it's your preference or not. Listen to a lot of different things, because when you go to work for somebody, if they hire you to score, whether it's a little 30-second thing or you're some indie film, they have an idea what they want it to sound like. And there are people that will hire a composer, and it's like, we want what you bring to the table, and that you're whatever you want, do something, and let's hear what it sounds like. But mostly they're having an idea they want it to sound like Sigur Rós or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to listen to a lot of things and be open to doing a lot of different things like that. And also write as much as you can. Like I've been doing a lot now because of this pandemic stuff. I'm doing the notation. The notation is very tedious. I love doing notation, but it can be tedious. And after a while, it's like, I need to do something else just for a little bit.
Right.
So I'm writing a lot of pieces right now. And that also exercises that muscle, or whatever you want to call it up here in the brain, that helps to churn the stuff out. So that when like this new show that theoretically I'll be doing soon, when that happens, I won't be trying to dust off the old writing skill. I'll have been doing this every day, and so it's good. It's like working out or something like that. It's a good thing to do. So write as much as you can, and try to write different things. When you write for the music libraries, you'll often, one library I wrote for, they ask for specific types of things. The one I'm in now, I think the main thing is they want you to do your artist sound kind of a thing. And everybody has a different artist sound. But I've turned other things in different styles, like some ethnic sounding things, for instance, in that library. But so just write a lot of different things. And there's all kinds of seminars that you can look at on YouTube about that, and how to put together the pieces. So all the music library companies, they all put these things out. Like, I'll show you how I did this piece, with this string Evo collection or something. You should watch those, because it's an education.
So I know you recently started your YouTube channel, and you're going to take advantage of some of the time that I think we all have, but you're going to take some of the time to be doing some videos there, not just releasing your songs there, but will you be doing some instructional videos there as well? Hopefully.
Yes, I'm working on I actually, I wasn't finished editing the video, but I shot a video with my iPhone of recording my Sequential Pro 1 into the PX-560. The PX-560 has two sets of inputs in the back. One's an 1/8 inch input where you can, I was going to say, not your iPhone anymore, but with a little 35 is it 35 millimeter? What's the
3.5 millimeter?
3.5, yeah, 3.5.
Yeah. You've got that where if you want to play your phone or a tablet or something like that through it on a break, on a gig. But then you also have 1/4 inch inputs. You can hook a mixer into it or whatever, and you can record audio into that. And through those inputs, if you go to record with your audio recorder, you can make a piece with the sound of the external thing coming into the keyboard. And so I'm going to do, I did a video on that, but what I didn't realize as I was shooting is all the coffee cups and stuff that I had on the deck of my work table that's behind the microphone here that you're not seeing. And that it's like, maybe I should make that look a little better. So I'm going to I'm going to shoot it again. It didn't take long at all to do that. And getting a good the thing to hold your phone is right now I'm using like a tripod with painter's tape holding my iPhone in place. But but it worked. So that's the first one. And I did I think it was called Jade Sky or something like that. I did a piece with the CTX 700 last year that was kind of an Asian influence piece. So I'm going to do a screen cap thing on that and how I put that together.
That'd be
with
great.
That one. Now that's $179, I guess, retail keyboard, and I wanted to see if I could make something that I could turn into a library company or use on a one of the promos or whatever. And so I picked that style. You know, we don't normally go to the oud or to the koto or something in a keyboard. When we sit down, we're always grabbing the piano, maybe the strings, and all that. So I wanted to use these instruments because I have VSTs, you know, expensive sample libraries that do that kind of a thing. And so I wanted to see how would that work, and it worked really well. Really beautiful. There's this metallic sound in there called, I think it's called a gender. I'm like, what is that? Gender? But it sounds kind of like a gamelan or something. It's really beautiful.
Right. Yeah,
beautiful.
Fact, some of our other instruments, like the PXS 3000, share elements of that sound set as well. So it's really a quite diverse sound set in that regard. There's some amazing things in there.
Yeah, a lot of the synth sounds you could do, like if you want to do like old Emerson, Lake and Palmer or something like that. Some of those synth sounds, they're perfect. I mean, they sound great. And you know, you can argue it doesn't sound like my R2600 but of course, you know, it's a whole different thing. But when you talk about spending a keyboard that's under $200 and you've got sounds that sound that kind of quality, I think it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of category defying.
Yeah, I mean, you have the sounds to do that kind of music if you want to do it there. And you know, if you want to go, oh, maybe I'll wait if I can get $2,500 together to buy Model X. You don't, by all means, if you can do that, do it. But if you have your under $200 keyboard that has that sound that's specific for that tune and you want to use it and it's great, you should use it.
Totally agree. Love it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just I'm just thrilled to hear that, you know, you've got the PXS or PX-560 there, and you're using that audio recorder so often just to capture ideas before they go away. And in fact, you've even used that when you've been visiting music stores. You've come back and posted, hey, I recorded this on a Salviano or another product at the music store because you're carrying your thumb drive with you, and you came up with something really cool and you didn't want to forget it, and then you brought it home and worked out the rest of the tune. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, I'll be working with the salesperson there, and then somebody will come. They'll want to buy something, and so they're away for a while, and then they always come back. But during that time, you know, I'll look around and I'll sit down at a CGP 700 or the PXS 3000, and I'll pop the thing in there, and I'll just make something up on the spot. And then sometimes I get it home and it's like, what was I thinking? But other times I can take it and, like the thing I did the other day for Afterthought, as I was playing, I knew at one point that chord I just played it just doesn't sound good. And so I stopped for a second, and then I continued and I played what I thought I wanted to play and did it. So I put the WAV file in Cubase, and then I cut the part out and put the thing back together and that kind of thing. So
that's very cool.
With the PX-560, I can kind of cut in and change parts and everything.
Yeah, the punch in.
That. Punch in, right. I wouldn't do that with the 560. Well, I would try it with the PXS 3000 sound. It just depends on, because a lot of times I bathe the stuff in a shimmer reverb or something like that, and after a while the sound gets mutated into something else so that you might not notice it. But some of the sounds in this keyboard and the CGP 700 are the same and all that. So I've been able to interface and I want to change the last chord, and so I've done it. You know, that kind of thing.
Nice.
You know, this reminds me of something I wanted to ask you about your process, especially as it applies to like film scoring. Do you ever are there ever any projects where you have to modify your process, where what's expected of you is something where you think, oh, geez, I don't have the right stuff to do this, or I need to use a program I've never used before?
Actually, that happens a lot. And for this next news program, theoretically, it looks like they would like to have Turkish clarinet music. And so I found an Eduardo Tarilante, I think, forgive me if I haven't pronounced that correctly, Eduardo, library that has, I think, what I'm looking for in it, so I'll be looking at that. And they gave me an artist's name, and so I listened to the pieces and everything, and I'm thinking, I don't think I have a clarinet that sounds exactly the same as this person's clarinet, but as I went through that library that I mentioned, seemed very similar to me and all that. So I'll probably be buying that library or they may change their mind, though, is the thing. And so I usually wait. When I did the show in the fall, at first they said, we want to have as much music that sounds like music of the area as possible. And so I did some things, I have East West Silk and some other libraries that have a lot of these instruments in the way they slide on the stringed instruments from note to note, stuff like that, the scripting done. And so I did some of those things. And as we got into the show, they said, this cue might sound good if you did violin and piano and some kind of like a string bed, a soaring violin or something like that. So then I would change that. And so then the ethnic instruments kind of went away, but then as the couple months passed on, some of them came back in again. So they changed, and you don't really know. You start out doing one thing, you go to something else, and then you come back. And I listened to and watched a lot of YouTube videos of people like Turkish musicians, etc. And I also, for the same company, I did a thing on the Boko Haram terror group a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so I listened to a lot of West African music, watched a lot of videos on YouTube, so that when I used the sample libraries, I tried to play it as close as I could and do justice to the instrument,
It's always something as a keyboard player that you're always having to adapt for. It could be as simple as playing guitar on a keyboard, but playing any other instrument that isn't originally a keyboard instrument. That's a skill that you have to learn to develop.
Yes.
And practice to be able to convincingly represent that instrument, and using the tools and the controllers that you have available to, bend that instrument the right way and phrase it the right way. So, but yeah, it takes a lot of time and effort to learn all those styles of different kinds of instruments.
When Definitely. I did the Asian influence piece with the CTX 700, it doesn't have a pitch bender on it, and I used erhu, Chinese violin sound, and I had listened to some things with it, and so I definitely knew I needed to have some pitch bends in it. And so I played the note in, the melody in, and I went back into the MIDI editing, and I drew in the pitch bend for that. That took a while. That took a while, because it was like, some of it was like, oh, I'm not going to get it. But
if you're doing that in Cubase and you've got both of them hooked up via USB, you could be playing the keys of the CTX and bending it with.
I ended up doing that too.
Oh, you did?
I actually ended up, after I had done several parts of it, drawing it in, I started thinking, you could play it from another keyboard. It's right in front of you. And so I did do that. And I've done that with I have an expensive Korg keyboard that's not textured and everything, and I've played the sounds via USB through Cubase that way too, because I wanted to play my textured keyboard.
Right.
So that's so So that's that's a great thing with MIDI, and you're using a DAW, a recording program. You can communicate with everything in your room.
Right. So one question that always comes up, when we're doing these, people ask, "Oh, what's your favorite song?" One of the things I wanted to ask was, what's your proudest moment as a composer?
Well, actually, it's a song I wrote back in 1982 or 83, but I was studying composition at Maryland. But I named it after my wife, Rebecca, and it's I've recorded it like a bunch of times. I have it on Bandcamp right now, but that's the one I would say, because I think about the person I wrote it for and everything. It's just that's probably my number one of all the things. Oh. A lot of the things that I write, I can't remember. Like if you said, "Could you play Afterthought?" I have to go play it for a little bit. I just wrote it. I can't. But that song I've been playing for years and years, kind of a thing, and it's just it's not the kind of thing I would probably ever put in a queue because it's more complex and everything. But that's been the thing for me anyway.
That's awesome. That warms my icy heart.
There you go, Rich. You got to write a song for you guys. You got to write songs for your wives.
Gotta get on that.
Absolutely. So, Roger, tell us, if people want to hear that song, where can people hear more about your music? What's the best place to go?
Okay. Well, I've got a Bandcamp page. Really, this is terrible. I really need to do my website again. I haven't changed it for a year or so. So go to my SoundCloud page, which when you sign up for SoundCloud, you put a name in, and then I thought, you know what? I didn't use my full name. I should have done that. Well, you're not allowed to change it. I didn't change it. Now I've had so many pieces on there. I just didn't do it. But it's Roho, ROHO. But if you do Roger Hooper on SoundCloud, you'll see my picture and everything. But I've probably got well over 100 pieces on there.
Wow.
You are prolific, sir.
And I have other. I do a lot of notation too, but that's not a. The music book won't be out for. It'll be in a few months, I think. But I've done music for other companies, right. Notation and all that. But my name's not going to be in there.
So your website, rogerhooper.com, will that link to your Bandcamp page and your SoundCloud page and things like that? Because you've got a lot of music up on.
It should, yeah, because SoundCloud, a lot of the SoundCloud playlists are embedded on there. That's something I need to change. Bandcamp might have been something that happened after. It definitely happened after the website, so I'm not sure. I'll see if I can put a link on there for Bandcamp. But otherwise, just go to Bandcamp. I've got several songs on there. I've got I did a little, mostly do documentary type things and ads, but I've done a handful of indie films, and a couple of them I got nominated for best score in a film festival and didn't win, but it's great to be nominated and everything like that. And one of them I have, it's called The Cosmonauts, a little science fiction story, and that's on Bandcamp. That was violin, viola, and cello and piano, and there's some synthesizer.
Very cool. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, that was 2011 or 12 or something like that.
All right, well, so I have your website up on the screen so everybody knows what it looks like. They go find it, rogerhooper.com, and looks like you have a lot of your portfolio up there, and people can reach out to you that way, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
all right.
Well, thanks, Roger, man, it's been awesome to have you here for this almost hour conversation. We really appreciate everything you're doing, and obviously you're out there working for us sometimes out in the retail field and sharing your love of Privia with other retailers, and that's fantastic. But while we brought you here today, the amount of music that you're producing and using our instruments to do it just warms our heart every day. So we really appreciate that.
Oh, well,
I'll
thank
second
you.
That.
Thank you. Great company to work for. And, Rich I met, I think, in 2011 when you were doing a seminar for somebody else, and then of course I saw your videos and everything. But Mike, I met you in back in the '90s, so that's
A long time ago. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, we reconnected on Facebook and through the Music Player Network. I think the
Yep.
Keyboard Magazine Music Player, they participating in that and everything. And Facebook has been a great thing. There's a lot of things that it's not great for, but reconnecting with friends and acquaintances and everything, it's been great. And doing that, and then connecting with Casio. When I got that PX 330, I was looking for something that was lighter. I mean, that was in 2009. So I was 11
Yeah,
years.
that's about right. That's right after I started with Casio. That's right.
Yeah. And, I was looking for something that was lighter. I had a keyboard that was 45 pounds at that point, and I was selling it, because I wanted to go in a different direction. I wanted to sell the thing when I had the time to make a decent amount of money for it, before it lost its value. And so I got the PX 330, and it was like, this feels good. One of the things I noticed about that was that when I played like Debussy or Beethoven Sonata movement pieces from the cocktail hours, I felt like I could play for hours on the thing. And part of that was because how the piano sound is voiced with respect to the action. And that's true with all the models today. You could play the piano from that model now and play the newer pianos and go, oh, the newer pianos sound better. Of course, they're always going to sound better, And but it's how the thing is voiced, so that when you're playing, it's just you can draw the tone out of the keyboard. And I didn't feel like I had this electronic fatigue that I had so often with other instruments, where after a while it's like, this is really great instrument. It feels good, it sounds good and everything, but it's just not the real thing. But it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I just felt like with that instrument, I was able to play it, and it did the job, and I wasn't wishing it sounded better.
Right.
Then when I opened up the 560, once I got used to the texture, I'm playing it. It's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I mean, the quality of the sound. It sounds like the piano. I saw a video a little bit earlier today of a friend that recorded something on a grand piano, and he was playing, and I'm thinking, that sounds like the PX-560 to me, but it was a real piano, so that's, and when I'm playing it, I just feel like I can get all these colors out of it, so.
That's awesome. We'd love to hear that.
We are glad you've got it, and we're glad you're out there, spreading the word for us. And we thank you for devoting your time to doing that, and of course with talking with us today.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
All right, so everybody,
I love talking about this stuff.
Go check out Roger Hooper's website. Go find his YouTube channel and subscribe. And if you are liking our Casio Artist Spotlight series, please do like and subscribe to all of our channels as well. We would greatly appreciate it. Leave us some comments, leave us some feedback of what you'd like to see. We have some great artists coming up next week as well. The next one is planned for Tuesday next week, where we will have incredible artist Mr. Tom Hammer will be joining us. So look forward to seeing all of you there. So, but I think for today, it looks like we're running about an hour or so. Roger, thank you again. And thanks everybody that's joined us for this broadcast. And we'll see you guys in the next Artist Spotlight. Thanks. Bye.
All right, guys. Bye-bye.